So gather round as I run it down and unravel my pedigree.
My pimp lineage is evident. West Jackson to Farris Street, boy, that was my residence. Raised on honey buns and Kool-Aid, and I was neglected like a toothache.
So far, half the places I've talked about in this video were all on one road trip alone. And two of the worst cities I've ever seen were down here too. Then I got to Jackson. Jackson wasn't just the worst place on this southern road trip. It's got to be the most ghetto place I've ever been in my life. I saw Jackson on a very sad day. There was a massive storm passing through when I got there, and it was 2 days of heavy rain. Like somebody was wringing out a huge towel all over us the entire time I was here. So it didn't matter when I went into the hoods. I knew nobody was going to be out. It was the most miserable thing I ever did see. A very soggy afternoon indeed. This right here is just one part of town on the southeast-ish side. But it doesn't matter where you go here. It's everywhere. And it's just like this. The entire south and west sides of the state's capital are just fucked up. It just looks like the end of the world in here.
Would you let me have $1.15?
The danger here is pretty much incorrigible. Beyond any reason. All the terrible things you can think of happen here every day. If a gang fight breaks out and winds up on your porch, well, that's Jackson. So a councilman here, his name's Kenneth Stokes. He got all pissed off because the cops were chasing too many people for shoplifting. He was like, let them go, we'll pay for it. Quit harassing people for petty crimes. And then he said, go out and throw rocks and bricks and bottles at the cops. That'll stop them. People can steal if they want to. Too much. And he said that to like every TV station in town. And then he got reelected 2 more times. Mississippi, my goodness, you are so basic. So years ago, they noticed the public water system was getting contaminated because the pipes are old. So they said they'd fix it, and they never did. Nope. The capital of Mississippi doesn't have clean water. Sometimes you get no water. Sometimes it's dirty with rust or shit. You just never know. Or sometimes your water bill doubles for no reason. They've been handing out water bottles here for a couple years now, and it's still not fixed. Just about everybody thinks the city not fixing the water is racist. And when you Google it, one of the results points out that 83% of Jackson's black. And I haven't even told you about the trash and the roads yet. I'm only halfway through explaining just how bad this city is. When I was here, the city didn't have trash pickup. There was a 3-month-long period when the city and the trash company couldn't figure it out, so they stopped picking up everyone's garbage. That's all they need here, right? Anyways, people were leaving their trash everywhere, and there were these enormous garbage volcanoes all over town. I still don't think their trash is all the way back to normal. This is all just too much. But the roads are the most visually frustrating thing in town. They are bad. You can't escape a bad road in Jackson. They're all wrecked. And the public's marking the potholes with garbage. I think the images of the roads were what makes it look so tragic here. One time during a heavy period of rain, I drove into a hole in the middle of the road. I don't know how big it was because the whole street was flooded, but my frame hit the pavement. Jesus, I just bottomed out. It was at that point I was like, you know what? Jackson's the worst place I've ever been. Frame hit the street. Oh my God. They got $800 million from the feds to go towards their $2 billion infrastructure needs. Well, so then half the city should be fixed up then in no time, right? One guy who lives here told me that he heard Jackson has the machines to fix the roads, but nobody knows how to operate them. Good Lord, I hope that's not true. I talked to some people who live here. One woman told me she thinks she knows why they're doing this. On purpose. That's why.
The neighborhoods are just a sight sore. They're terrible. It's trash thrown everywhere, tires all on the side of the road in the neighborhoods. It really feels like it's a third world country. Like it's absolutely disgusting. I don't even think it's healthy to breathe the air down here. You know what I'm saying? Like, even me and my mom was talking last night. We feel like the water is making us itch. You know, we was like, she said this morning it smelled funny. So it really does seem like nobody care about us.
Can it get worse? I mean, I always ask people, what's the future of your city? What do you think? I mean, do you think it's going to get worse? I don't think driving around, I don't see how it can get much worse, but apparently it is getting worse there.
I don't know. I don't think it could get any worse. I hope it don't. I pray it don't. But I mean, it kind of seemed like they're trying to like push us out. I don't know, like force us to move. I don't know. It's weird.
I ran into a guy named Chris when I was in Jackson. He wouldn't let me show his face, but he had a lot to say.
You know, this is an age-old infrastructure system. If they go back and do the research, this thing probably hadn't had any type of significant, you know, upgrade in forever. Probably since, I hate to say it, you know, since the city was ran by white people. And you know, and maybe it needs to go back to that.
I bugged Chris for a week trying to get him to come on and do a video call with me, and he just ghosted. I think Chris could have said a lot of things to open some eyes here. Maybe one day he'll let me record him. Chris, if you're out there, email me. All these places have some major issues, but Jackson stands out because it lacks the basics of a civilized society. Roads, waste disposal, reliable schools, clean water, proper sewage, building codes, public safety, for God's sake. Whoever had their hands in running this place has failed miserably, and their true intentions are suspect. There's money to fix this place and every other city in this video. It just takes somebody to care enough to get the money and spend it right. From what I gather, these inner city politicians aren't being honest about the money part. And also, from what I've heard, they don't care either. So if nobody takes charge here, Jackson and the rest of these places will just keep getting worse. Our politicians make themselves wealthier as they let our borders leak. They allow drugs to seep into every block, and people who have worked hard their entire lives sleep on the streets, and our cities crumble around them. But we continue to give billions of dollars to other countries so that they can live a better life. Something ain't right about that. Society's breaking down. It's gun control, soft policing, the decline of family values. We're being let down by our local governments who mismanage money and won't stand up to criminals. Now you might look at all this and say, oh, it's in the South. That's nowhere near where I live. But every part of our country is starting to look like this. It's probably coming to a town near you. We may have come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat together now.
It starts with corruption. You know, you touched on it in your video, and you were kind of like, you think it's a money thing, and it is. Mississippi has a lot of money, okay, but it's tied up in the trust fund with all the red tape, the bickering, the back and forth, the not wanting to work together to get stuff done. God turned around and exposed them with that water crisis. Now they got to do something. And the federal government has been sending millions to Mississippi, and they haven't done anything yet. And then you see, like you pointed out in your video, construction work going on at the Capitol. Listen, there is always construction work going on at the Capitol. They're always doing something, upgrades, bringing in new carpet, changing out the AC units, and just doing all kinds of nice things for the Capitol. You know, the grass is so green. I mean, it's crazy, the corruption. And the reason I say it's corruption is because, and it's embezzlement, is because if you check the history of Mississippi embezzlement cases, we probably got the most embezzlement cases in the whole country, because they'll start these little fires and distract people. And before you know it, the money that was there to be used for a certain thing is not there. It's like magically gone, like as if we don't know where it is. Okay. And I'm 51. I was born in 71 in Jackson, Mississippi. Baptist Hospital, all these places that you rode by were open when I was young. It's embarrassing to see that today in 2023. You're driving down the street and you see sewage bubbling up out of the potholes. That's ridiculous, because they sit on their hands. There's money. Okay, it's not like Mississippi. Look, Mississippi is the poorest state on paper. Okay, to the world, they're the poorest state. Not true. If you open up the vault, it's not true. There's money, lots of money in Mississippi. It's so much corruption down there. That city, it starts with the city council. They're not getting together. They don't make decisions on time. Bids fall through. Now just think about it. If Google or Samsung wanted to come down there and open a headquarters or some type of, just a branch office to have, bring in maybe 1,500 workers, average. Do you think they would really want to do that, given to what you saw?
No, I know. It's been going on. You're 51. It seems like Jackson's been going downhill for a long time. Why don't people re-elect or elect people to protest and get this place fixed? It's like everyone just like looks around and they're like, man, this sucks. This place is getting worse and worse. But like, same people keep getting elected. Same.
Exactly.
It's going to change.
Yeah. The average term on those city council members is probably 6 years. You know what I'm saying? They just keep voting them in. And you know what they do? When it's time to elect and run elections, they'll go down a street and spend some money and pave that street, or put a couple of roofs on the old ladies' houses to win votes. Then once they get in, they tell the neighborhood, we're going to do this whole thing. But once they get in, they stop. And then you have the situation where when it's time to do construction, they try to make it seem like they can't get outside companies to come in. Texas does it all the time. I mean, why does it have to be only Mississippi construction companies to do that, to do the work? They make it seem like their hands are tied and they only got so much, when that's a lie. It's an outright lie. And they're suffocating that city is literally what they're doing by not keeping the infrastructure maintained, the roads, the water system under the city, you know, basic stuff, you know, keeping areas clean. And then something that was also very embarrassing, that the police are getting paid $30,000. That's why they're so corrupt. That's why they go and make alliances with the drug dealers and the gangs and you know, because look what they're doing. They're not making no money, and they expect them to police that type of violence. That type of violence that's going on in Jackson is comparable to New Orleans, Detroit, Chicago. It's serious, just that serious. So, I wouldn't want to be a police officer down there on $30,000. That's crazy.
So what's the future of Jackson? What, I mean, can it get worse? It seems like it's pretty bad.
I really think that you know how something has to burn itself out? Certain things, like certain candles have to burn themselves out. Like, for instance, I'm not a fan of Kenneth Stokes. He's one of the city council members that's been there for like 30 years. I mean, that's unheard of. And he has done nothing for his community. The community over there where he represents, gang infested, drug infested, bodies are showing up. How is that? You know, so I don't have any faith in those city council members. They're the ones that hold the purse strings to allow businesses to come into town. They're the ones who control the money being spent to get stuff done around the city. And all they do is get in session, him and Hall, they go at each other back and forth. They argue, create this confusion. And then before you know it, the session's over. No decisions have been made. Everything's shut down. Now everybody gone fishing. Everything's, you know, back. You know, it's like, don't bother me. Just give me my check. That's how they feel down there in the city council of Jackson. They don't want to do the work. That's the problem. And until all of them are ousted, the only one I got any favor with is the mayor, and his hands are tied. Okay, because the police officers, they're corrupt. Okay, there's history of their corruption. Okay, it's crazy, and it's gonna have to burn itself out. When I say that, I mean certain council members, you know, God forbid, are gonna have to pass on before things get better, because it's gonna have to be somebody that can forge. You know, collectively, because what they're doing, all this arguing, that's the crux of it right there. This one city council member will veto the whole vote, and then what? I mean, come on, it's stupid. It's like, and then, but when Madison, you know, and you know what's funny? A lot of them live in Madison. They don't live in Jackson proper. You know, they might have a apartment where their girlfriend stay, or their cousin or somebody, and they claim that, but they live in Madison and Flowood, guarantee you.
What you're describing is sadly the case in a lot of the places that I go to. There's a lot of corruption and a lot of city council members and they don't do a very good job, and residents don't stand up and demand change. It's just on an extreme level in Jackson that
you know, the people have given up. That's why you don't see the protests. You won't see it. They've given up. They're comfortable in their it's almost like a silent oppression, a prison without walls. That's what it is. Closed society. That's what they've been calling Jackson for years, a closed society. They just need to be ousted. They got to get out of there. You know, and I think the people, they realize that, you know, no matter how many times they vote them back in, they're going to do them dirty. So they just be like, whatever. You know how Stockholm syndrome, that's what it is. You know, you get beat down so much, you start to love your oppressor. And that's what that is in Jackson.
What would happen if you ran? What do you think would happen if you ran against one of the city council people that's been there, an incumbent for years and years and years? What would happen? You know,
I would honestly probably win. But the thing is, if I got in, I'm dealing with the mother ones. See what I'm saying? It has to be, I think it's six or seven council members in there. It has to be 6 or 7 me's in order to do that. You understand? That's the only way it's gonna change.
Why don't you get like 6 or 7 people and get one in each ward and come together and start a social media thing and get everybody fired up and go in there in November and crush it, man.
You know, that's a honorable thing, but to get the people motivated, that's the task. You know, when you have a people that they just like, you know what, you do it, I watch. You know, when you have that, it's hard. It's real hard. So, you know, other people from like you, from other places with these ideas would flourish in Jackson if it was a lot of yous and a lot of me's. But the thing is, it's a lot of stagnant spirit, a lot of it's not going to change. This is how it's always been. You know, I mean, I got older relatives, older than me that, you know, that talk like this. And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, you don't want to change this? And they'll just be like, it's always been this way, baby.
So talk to me about your music, man. You're kind of an influential guy in Jackson. What are you doing, man, with your production company and your music and all that stuff?
Started my record label, Missinglink Recordings, and to date I put out 3 albums and 6 singles and 4 videos. So I'm out there. If anyone wants to check me out, you can Google me, TheOneJP. I'm everywhere. All systems go. All major music platforms. You can catch me on ReverbNation.com/TheOneJP, and I also have a YouTube channel, TheOneJPtv. Check me out.
Raised on honey buns and Kool-Aid, and I was neglected like a toothache.